anymore. I just don't.
All right. Nick Osen did not sign up for any of this. Cyclone Alert, 247 Sports joins us. Paul Catalina, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Nick, thank you very much for your time. How tough is it in Ames right now with the Dekkers? And they knew about players and this gambling, whatever, but the news of Dekkers, was that a punch in the, you know what?
Hey, great to be here, guys, as well as with my guy Garrett on some of the keys. So, in terms of a punch in the gut, I would say, for the most part, guys, this was something that was fairly, expected. I'm not sure if everything right down to, some of the alleged situations with betting involving games, ISU, obviously, before he was starting. Not sure quite to that detail, but they've known for a while, really, guys, that he was not expected to be the guy, quite honestly, for several months. And even before any of this, there was a pretty legitimate QB battle going on in the spring. Now, Dekkers was still at a decent spot at that point. But again, none of this was a complete shock. And just speaking with sources really around the program throughout this week, I think it's intriguing and obviously a big story that it's out there. But in terms of the program, they're really as locked in as always, just kind of shutting out the outside noise right now.
Why did the state of Iowa move on this so much faster than everywhere else has?
And so, it's kind of depending on who you ask, guys. You'll hear some different things, but it's almost like this story that it kind of came out of nowhere, kind of like you alluded to. And there's not like a clear-cut reason why it was not only here in Iowa, right? But then even looking a little deeper, it's so centric to Iowa State and Iowa, like University of Iowa Hawkeyes, when there are still a couple other pretty big-time athletic schools in the state. Drake, the D1 school, Northern Iowa, who Iowa State's going to play week 1. And I don't know about you guys, but I certainly don't think that just Iowa and Iowa State would be the only schools to be kind of involved in something like this. So it really makes, kind of wonder, why did this start with Iowa? Why was it just these two schools? And additionally, almost why did it take nearly 3.5, 4 months for some of these legitimate details to be really officially released? And we're still waiting on some, by the way, too.
And the reason I asked is that, it is strange because this is going to happen at several other places around the country. And you could probably go to every major program or school, and maybe not football, but every big Power 5 school and find somebody that's an athlete with a DraftKings account. That's not going to be any big surprise. I was just curious as to what, politically in Iowa, why was this driven so hard to the hole so fast compared to other places that have probably the exact same problem?
Yeah, and that's kind of, that area that I've heard a lot of different things. Some people, some knowledgeable people on my message board have, really kind of asked similar things and things like, were a couple people just kind of trying to make an early name and kind of get their big investigations out of the way early, really things of that nature. But my point is, maybe, like you said, maybe you don't just hit on football, but I'm not at all of these other schools, but I could almost essentially guarantee you go to any school really in the country, D1, D2 with athletics, you're right, either like the accounts or potentially involved in fantasy football or things like that. I think that now you're going to see potential investigations more across the country, but I'm sure we can agree, we know darn well that these other schools are kind of probably going to jump this up tenfold in terms of really trying to point out what is okay and what isn't. Because I'll be honest, when this came out, officially Tuesday, this has been kind of under my eyes for several months now, even before the investigation. But I don't think that I would have necessarily expected this to be, talked about on some of these national talk shows all over, and specifically just kind of keying in on the Hunter Dekker's name and the quarterback. I understand it's such a major position, but it's just, it's a little bit unique and almost surprising stepping back here in Iowa, where we're kind of in the midst of it, and seeing it talked about and publicized so far all over the country, guys.
Nick, I know what you mentioned about the quarterback position and Dekker's perhaps not being the guy, and of course that remains to be seen how it works out. But man, when we were at Big 12 Media Days, everybody was there. 14 teams, of course, split over 2 days, and I saw everybody. I saw Matt Campbell for about 50 seconds walking from one side of the field to the other. And I'm not saying they were dodging anybody because there's that breakout session, when you're up on the podium. But I did not see much of them. Was that perhaps because of what they're dealing with, or am I wrong that I just wasn't paying attention?
Yeah, in most cases, I think that would actually make a lot of sense. But this time, quite honestly, I was down there with you guys, and, I actually felt like they were out there really as much as anybody. I don't think that was necessarily an underlying thing. I will say, though, it was announced today kind of who we get for media day and some of the rest of availability the rest of the way until the season starts. And there, I'm sure that there are kind of some levels of maybe being a little extra protective of like the program, the guys that are involved, the guys that are not, maybe not having to answer all of these questions about a few teammates, or now Hunter Dekker's because it has been made public. I just get this sense that, I think they're really trying to be protective. And with a lot of that, even though I am a media member, I also, kind of empathize with some of the relationships and looking out for 20, 21, really guys, 18 and 19-year-olds now that may be further into the spotlight because of some of these punishments and results of the investigation. So I think it's something that Iowa State is navigating. Obviously, we as media are, and it's something that, quite frankly, we haven't seen as much in the spotlight throughout our jobs the last few years.
So, Nick, let's go on the field. They had a lot high hopes for Hunter Dekker in his second year as the full-time starter. That's over now. Is it J.J. Cole? Is there a legit competition? What do you expect to see from the quarterback position as practice gets underway?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it is, by people I really trust kind of throughout these last few months, guys. It's a legitimate competition. It is between, J.J. Cole is in it, 4-star QB, J.J. Cole, a true freshman. But right now, I would say second-year man Rocco Beck, Florida 3-star quarterback, would be kind of the man in that top spot right now. I think that both have had really, really good 6-7 months since kind of that spring ball. Even since that competition, I think that Cole provides some of those long-term, both tangibles and intangibles with his talent. His potential ceiling is really high. But I'm under the impression, if the Cyclones threw on their pads and were playing a game that counted this weekend, I think that Rocco Beck would be the guy taking those first snaps. And I'll also say JUCO quarterback Tanner Hughes, though I'd be very surprised if he was the guy, he is still in the mix a little bit as well.
Hey, Nick, hope to have you on. And, Jared Stansberry was a guy that we leaned on for some of the information with the Cyclones. He recommended you, so that was a good recommendation because he's a good dude. Glad he did. Garrett Ross said hi. And, in fact, Garrett, you want to say hi to him with your headset?
What's up, Nick? How you doing, bro?
Garrett, it's always great to hear from you. And, guys, I'm so grateful for being on. That was a great call from Smokey yesterday, and I'd love to be back.
Hey, don't get too full of yourself now. All of a sudden, no, I'm kidding, Nick. No, we'll be on. We will be in touch. Iowa State news. We're coming to you, so be ready for that. We appreciate it. 247 Sports. Nick Osen with us from what is CycloneAlert.com, and we appreciate his time. Coming up next, here we go. We're not.